Isaac, you want to open us in prayer?
Thank you, God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit, for everything you do for us. Thank you for waking us up. Thank you for the words that we're going to hear from our sister. Thank you for sitting at our tables. Thank you for all the meals that we eat and all the family that we have and what you did on the cross. Thank you for coming off that cross and the blood sprinkled on everybody. In your name, Jesus Christ, I pray.
Amen. Been a week for making families. We had a family made on Saturday when 2 people got married. Had another family expanded with the adoption of 3 little girls.
Also had another family.
Austin, Teresa's Jacob.
Jacob got married.
Still praying for Austin. Jacob got married, right? So it's been a momentous week, and that is going to have to. Can you do me a favor and shut those blinds right there, because that is going to shine right in your face too. This week we've been doing our anxiety and depression study. This week we have a special guest. Have I ever had you preach in church? So is this your first time speaking? Like get to the
in this church, yes.
Yeah, to the congregation. Yeah, to our congregation. I know. So that's on me. That's on me. She is a trained teacher. She is our church accountant. She wears many hats and also plays piano and sings. And tonight she is going to talk about depression and its connection to online activity and addiction. So let us welcome Teresa Wagner, also known as T-Wags.
I love being called T-Wags. I do, I really do. I find it very interesting that Pastor picked this one for me to talk about, because I actually do have experience with this, because my life is all about technology. He is correct. I'm a trained teacher. I was a teacher for 28 years. And I was one of the first people who would gravitate to any form of technology and use it in any way that I could. And now I'm a training consultant, so my entire job is on the computer. And my side jobs are on the computer. This phone is never far from me. This is like an appendage. If I leave it anywhere, I like freak out, right? So here's my question to you. How many of you have one of these little things? Be honest. A phone. Yeah, be honest. Okay, how many of you have a computer or a tablet that you use? Okay, how many of you have a TV in your home? All right, so we all have technology in one shape, form, or another, right? So here's the question that I want to open with today. I want you just to think about it. It's not actually a question, it's a statement. I want you to think about this for 5 seconds. Don't say anything out loud, just think about this. Technology is the enemy. The more you use it, the worse your mental health gets. Psst. Just think. Do you agree or disagree with that statement? True or false? Shout it out.
True.
False.
True.
False.
Is there a correct answer? Yes, there is. The correct answer is that that's a false statement. It is a false statement. It's not the amount of it's not the amount you use it, it's how you use it that creates a problem and could potentially create impacts on your mental health. So, let's start with this. I typically, when I get home from work, I would say that I'm probably normal in that I'm exhausted, I'm brain dead, I don't want to do anything else with my computer, I don't want to have to sit there and think about anything else. And I love to read, but picking up a book even is a problem. So what I find myself doing many times is sitting there vegging in front of the TV, or I will sit there and mindlessly doom scroll on Facebook and just not even read half the time, or just watching reels, because it's giving me something to do to keep me awake until I can absolutely go to bed so that I can actually sleep through the night. And that's what I end up doing. But that is not the greatest way for me to use my time, and I have noticed over the years that it does impact my mental health when I allow myself to do things like that. So a few years ago, I actually did an experiment because I found myself getting really wrapped up. I was feeling really icky. I was physically, mentally, I was just not enjoying life. And I was like, what the heck? What's going on? And I started actually tracking the amount of time that I was on my devices. Now, I will forgive my computer use because, again, when I'm at work, I'm literally on my computer. I'm designing training. I'm doing training. Everything's on that. I'm talking about watching TV. I'm talking about being on any kind of social media accounts. I'm talking about those kinds of things. And what I found was I was literally spending hours on that, and it was draining me. So here's what I did. I deleted Facebook from my phone. That's as simple. That's all I did. I just deleted Facebook from my phone. What was interesting is that I actually found myself, the number of times I would pick up my phone to go to Facebook and realize it wasn't there. I didn't realize, because I don't track things very well, not that kind of stuff, not things I don't want to know about. So I had never taken the time to actually figure out the amount of hours. I just knew it was a lot. But what I realized was the number of times I would pick up my phone to scroll through Facebook was astronomical. And it would just, I'd be standing in line, I'd pick up my phone. Oh, Facebook's not there. Oh, Facebook's not there. And it took me probably a good 3 to 4 days. And I noticed my attitude was changing. The way that I looked at things was changing. The way that I interacted with people was changing. And it all for the better. And I, again, not a scientific study, totally not scientific, but what I equated it to was that was no longer in my life. So when that wasn't filling my time, I had to find other things to fill that time. And we'll come back around to what those things were that helped me through that. So again, it's not technology itself that's bad, it's how we use it that can actually impact our mental health. So I'd like to go through 5 hidden costs with you tonight on how technology can impact us negatively. And again, this is all in this lovely little book you guys have been following too. But what's interesting is that my own little scientific research, when I tried that on myself, actually proved the majority of this to be true. So the first is addiction. If we look at this, here's my question to you. How prevalent do you think addiction is when it comes to technology? Or let's just go with the internet. How prevalent do you think addiction to the internet is? Very high? Yeah, extremely high. I actually found the results in this book to be lower than I thought, because according to this, and Pastor, do you happen to know what the copyright of this book is? I didn't have the book to look at.
Recent.
Is it really recent? Because it shocked me how low it was. Because this says that a U.S. survey said up to 8% across the population was addicted to the internet. And I'm thinking, that's way low.
You know what?
That's a lie.
2015.
2015. So I would bet you dollars to donuts that if we were to use our phones and do Google right now, yeah, we'd probably find that that's a lot higher than that. He's going to look it up for us. Because I was shocked. I was like, no way, man. I know just within my peer group and my circle of influence, I can tell you that percentage is already way high. It said South Korea is the most connected in the entire world, and they've got such a big issue. They said about 10% of the teens are so addicted to the internet that the government actually runs these rehab camps, and they treat 5,000 kids a year for internet addiction. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. And then worldwide in 2015, the estimate was about 420 million addicted to the internet. And if you think about the fact that we have whole swaths of the planet that are not even connected to the internet, that number is even more ridiculously high, right? Because we have whole populations. There's countries that do not have internet access. I know, that's shocking. Because here in the United States, it's just we just know we have it, right? But there are places that don't have it, so that's even more of a concerning topic or a number.
If you want to know the numbers, by the way. 14 to 27% clinically diagnosed, 48% self-reporting.
See, now that sounds more like what I would expect to hear, right? Okay, so here's how I know that addiction is actually real when it comes to technology. One, I experienced it for myself when I cut myself off from Facebook, and I literally was like, oh, I gotta have it, oh. But here's something else. When my kids were young, it's not just about the internet, because they had gaming devices. This was a big issue in our household. My husband, who hopefully will not be watching this anytime soon, but my husband introduced our kids to games much earlier than I ever would have liked it. It was Xbox, I believe it was. But my kids, they were lovely kids until these devices came into our household, and then they just were downright bratty. Like, I wanted to smack them bratty. No, I did not. Don't call DCFS on me, although they're grown now. But they were just obnoxious. And I got tired of it. And I was like, you know what? We're done. So I took their games and I hid them. I hid them where Matt couldn't even find them. And nobody could find them. Mama was the only one. It was right in front of them the entire time, just so y'all know. They couldn't find it. All boys. I mean, that should be explained. But they couldn't find it. I tell you what, for days, they threw tantrums. Matt wanted to give in. I'm like, nope, not going to happen. They literally, on the floor, kicking, screaming, going through withdrawals. I mean, they would like literally shake. After about, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 days, I actually started to see my boys wake up. They started like, oh, they had personalities. They started to realize there was a world beyond that console, and they started to go back to, oh, I can actually read the book, because they've been read to the entire time. So that to me spoke to the fact that addiction is very real. It grabs you. I mean, they're made to do that, right? They're going after you. They know exactly how to hook you, and that's what they want. So all of these things come into play with this. So addiction is a hidden cost, and we have to be very much aware of it so that we can take steps to make sure we don't get hooked. The second is isolation. Now, this one I find very interesting. Pastor made some comments. It wasn't this past Sunday because I wasn't here because I was at my son's wedding. So it must have been the Sunday before. You said that you had gotten some text messages, and you were talking about the fact that, you know, sometimes you get text messages and you can't read a tone in text messaging, and you oftentimes will take somebody's message the wrong way. See, I was paying attention. The same is true when you're doing anything with technology and you're trying to converse with somebody. So statistics say 65 to 85% of communication is nonverbal. Well, let's think about this for a second. If you were on a keyboard and you're not on camera and there's nothing else, you've got 65 to 85% of your communication that's completely and totally shut off. You're not seeing what the other person's reactions are. You're not hearing their tone of voice. And in my case, it's probably a good thing you can't always see my facial expressions, because I've been told that my facial expressions, sometimes you'll think I'm upset with something, and really all I'm doing is processing information, and I apparently look very angry when I do that. I don't know. I've been told that numerous times. Teresa, you're so intimidating when you're thinking. I'm like, I'm just thinking. That's all I'm doing. I'm so sorry. But we're isolated when we allow ourselves to sit behind a computer, a screen, a game, or what have you for hours on end. And here's why I find this interesting. You can't exactly get to know a person when you aren't engaging with them in real life. Now, I say that hesitantly because, interestingly enough, this weekend at my son's wedding, he met a young man for the first time in person, and they have been friends for, Jacob's 24, so they've been friends for probably close to 12 years. And this weekend was the first time they've met in person. They met gaming, because gaming is huge online, if y'all aren't aware. It's huge. They've met people from all over the world. And this young man lives out in California, and they met gaming. They struck up a conversation. They took it off gaming and have talked on the phone and everything else, but never met in person. They'd FaceTimed before. In fact, Jacob led this young man to Christ. So very cool, right? I mean, it can. This is what I mean. It can be used for good, but it can also be bad, because we also know there's a whole catfishing thing going on. But it was funny how how do I say this, especially since we're live? The person that he was expecting to meet, it was different when he walked off that plane and saw him for the first time, because even seeing somebody on camera, you're still only seeing a small part of them. And when they step off and they're in person, the whole dynamic shifts and changes. So if you want to go beyond and have relationships outside of the computer, at some point, you're going to have to move it beyond the screen so that you can have that face-to-face interaction. And then, of course, that opens up the whole, how do you do that? Because, you have to be careful, yada, yada, yada. But that's outside the scope of this particular lesson. What's that?
It's like they get to know, they think they're friends, but they don't even go by each other's names. They go by their usernames.
Yes, and they actually, what was funny, I'm so glad you said that, because this young man that I'm referring to, he knew the other people in the wedding party because they had been gaming all along. But it was funny when they were introducing each other, they would say, hey, I'm so-and-so, you know me as. And then they would say their handle, and I'm like, this is so weird, it's so bizarre.
My daughter would be like, hey, I'm Looney. Oh, I'm...
Yes,
I'm
yes,
like, oh my gosh.
yes. It's a totally different world. Totally different world. So we have addiction and we have isolation. So the third is judgment. We have comparison and conflict that happens, and it's how we judge ourselves and measure ourselves and how we allow strangers to judge and measure us. So here's my question to you. How many of you have some kind of social media account? Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, one of them lovely things. Okay. Of your friends' posts, how many of them show really great things? Like, we're on vacation. Oh, look at my son, my daughter. I just did this so I can look at my son. They're all great. How many of your posts from your friends are all, these things are great in my life?
A lot, most of them.
Most of them, a lot. I have a few friends, and I mean just like, and by friends, I really mean more acquaintances than anything, because of my friend list, I have a very short list of people that I interact with on at least a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, and the rest I maybe have seen once in the last few years, right? Outside of my family. But most of the time, people are only posting the best parts of their life. So it gives us a distorted view of what other people's lives are like. And then we end up comparing ourselves to them. And it's like, well, how come their kids are always this great? How come their spouse is always this great? How come they always get this on their job and they've got these promotions and fantastic opportunities? How come they get these vacations? Their life's fantastic. We don't always see behind the scenes, right? But yet we are measuring ourselves and judging ourselves up by that. And then if we go online and we're like, I've had a really crappy day, people, I just need some prayers. And all of a sudden it's more of it can be, depending on who your acquaintances are, it's a matter of, well, you don't have your act together, you've got problems, yada, yada, yada. And it allows us to bring ourselves down. And that can be debilitating. It can raise our anxiety, can raise our depression. So we have to be careful about how judgment plays into this. And then there's also the aspect of cyberbullying. Is cyberbullying just a teen issue? No. No. How many of you guys have kids?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, you better raise your hand. If you've been around kids at all, you know bullying in and of itself is a huge problem across the board. But now it's even worse online because cyberbullying can happen and they don't even need to be in the same room, same city, same state. And it's driven kids to suicide. But it's not just a teen problem. Adults have that same issue as well. I shouldn't tell you to do this because, the whole thing is to be careful with technology. But the next time you're on Facebook, if you haven't done this lately, just go through and start reading some of the comments, some of the posts.
Yeah.
Oh my word. Some of the things people say to each other,
Yeah.
I'm like, would you say that to somebody if they were standing in front of you? Because more than likely it would... You just can't believe it, right? You're tearing people down. So now imagine this, if you're somebody who's already suffering from depression or already fighting that battle, and then you've got people speaking that into your life, well, look at you piece of da-da-da-da-da-da, and why don't you just go da-da-da-da? It's horrible. But that's going on when we're in those situations. So that is a third hidden cost. You've got addiction, isolation, and judgment. The fourth one, and I think this one is even more concerning because I personally think this is one that we aren't often aware of, and that is when we get pulled under without even noticing it. I don't know about you guys, at least with Facebook. I don't know about Instagram. Y'all who are Instagram people, you can tell me if it's true. But I know for Facebook's algorithm, you click on a link and that's what starts to pull your feed in. And I swear it listens to me too, because all I have to say is biscuits. I guarantee you biscuits are now going to be filling up my feed, right? So you got to be careful what you say. Right. Yeah, gravy and biscuits. Bring it on. But here's the thing. That's my thing. Are you checking for biscuits now? But here's the point. Our feeds are full of doom and gloom. And even if we don't necessarily recognize it right away, it starts to bring our attitude down. Right. If you're in your little bubble, and if all that's coming into your bubble is doom and gloom all the time, all of a sudden that's how you start to see the world, right? And this is a really tough one for a lot of people to handle. But race is a huge issue right now. And on some of these feeds, if you read them, there's race wars going around all around us, and we can't like each other at all. And if that's all you feed into, that might be what you believe, but then step outside of that bubble, start walking around, start meeting people. You can meet people from every race and creed and gender, and they don't treat you that way, right? That's not saying that you can't have bad experiences, but by and large, people are just people. But we allow this stuff to feed into our daily lives, and it starts to depress us, and it starts to bring us down. And oftentimes, that feeling of powerlessness that comes over us, it creeps in. It's not a slap in your face like a cyberbullying incident would often be. But this one just creeps in. And then it also eats our time. The whole purpose of these is to suck time away from us. They're designed to literally allow you to sit there for hours without even realizing that that's what you've given up. And once that time is gone, we don't get it back, right? So time is a commodity that once it's gone, it's gone. So that all feeds into our feelings of helplessness and despair. And fifth, but not least, the fifth hidden cost is what it does to our bodies, physically and mentally. So if we are sitting in front of any kind of technological device, whether it be your TV, your computer, your tablet, your phone, what have you, how many times do you move?
Not a lot.
Move.
Move.
How many times do you move?
When I have to eat.
Thank you. And half the time I'm sitting there going, I gotta finish this, I can't go yet. Anybody else do that, or is that just me? Thank you. Matt actually told me, he's like, last week you sat at your computer for 8 hours and I don't think you moved. I said, yes, I did. I got up once. I went to the bathroom. He's like, yeah, that's the only time you moved, honey. I'm like, I know, but I had to finish that. I'm a task-oriented person. Right? I mean, if you can't break your concentration, but that is doing a number on us physically. If we're not moving, our bodies are not meant to sit like that or lay like that, or however you want to do it. They're not meant to be like that. So that's causing more physical stress on our bodies. So we've got health impacts on that. It's going to raise our blood pressure. It's going to increase our chances of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, all of those things. And then there's the mental anxiety and stress on top of it. We get that fear of being left out. So we're constantly trying to go search out for the next like, or we want to know what's going on because we don't want to miss out on something. So it's increasing our anxiety. All of those things are taking effect in our body. So what do we do? Well, here's what I did. And obviously I didn't learn my lesson because Facebook's back on my phone. I need to delete it again. It is, but for me, I know that that's a problem for me because I automatically will just gravitate towards my phone. And here's the thing. When I took it off my phone, guess what I gravitated towards? My Bible app, and my Facebook app are right next to it. And when the Facebook app's there and I don't want to have to think, it's the Facebook app that I go to. But if the Facebook app's not there, then I go to my Bible. And half the time I'll sit there with it just open, just staring at it because I can't comprehend anything because I'm so tired. But which one's better? Staring at my Bible app, even though it's not reading it, or doom scrolling through Facebook? Bible app, right? So yes, I need to delete it again, and I will.
You also got the audio on the Bible app too.
Hmm?
You got the audio on the Bible app too.
I do, and that leads me to the next one. My eyes are so tired by the end of the day, but I have to have something to engage me that will take me away from everything else, so I use audiobooks.
Yeah.
Anybody go for walks?
Yes.
Put your device down, go for a walk. Best thing you can do for yourself, right? Go for a walk. If it's too hot outside, go to a gym. Go to the mall. We still have one.
Yeah.
We do. It's usually empty. So start walking the mall. Just don't go shopping unless you are allowed to, right? Don't get in trouble with your spouse because Teresa said go to the mall. Don't do that. Sometimes it's as simple as just sitting on a couch or a chair or standing in the garden and just stopping and allowing yourself to breathe.
Play a game. Play like Scrabble, Boggle.
Yes.
Hey, there you go. Uses your brain.
Yes, put together a puzzle.
Oh no.
Oh no, well, but a puzzle is any of those things. Something that's going to engage your brain in a different aspect. Perfect.
Exactly.
Perfect. Any other ideas as to how you can combat it? Any other ideas? When you feel like you need to have something,
Get in the pool.
get in the pool. I don't have a pool, so go see Jennifer, get in the pool.
Tell yourself, rest.
Rest.
Rest, because you're talking about the frustration, ding and all this stuff, but stay away from it. You gotta finish, your whole body's intense and you're trying to finish. I have to make myself say, stop it. That work's gonna be always there. I'll come back later.
I'm still working on that. I'm still trying that, but I will tell you what works for me is I'll get on the back of the motorcycle. I cannot be driving the motorcycle because then I will go off the road. So that's when I backpack it and I'm like, let's go. Matt will take me on the motorcycle and it usually takes about 15, 20 minutes on the back before my mind will stop. and I'll just and guess what? Then the ideas start flowing. Because I've
We go for a little golf cart ride.
golf cart ride, love it.
That's good.
What else?
Bike rides.
Bike rides,
Usually it's like
fishing.
getting into worship, going in a quiet place, putting on like my favorite song at first, just to kind of get me to that place to kind of unwind, and then kind of letting the Lord's presence kind of lead me into a quiet time.
Absolutely, music is one of those things that can really dig in deep to your soul,
Yeah.
even when you don't want it to.
Exactly. That's when I know I need it the most. When
Yep.
I'm like, okay.
Absolutely.
I feel like I want to fight everybody. This
Yep.
isn't good.
What about getting into nature?
Yes, yes. Going for a walk, and here's one of the beautiful things about the area that we live in, is that there's all kinds of nature preserves. You don't have to go to Rock Cut State Park, although it's close by, but even sometimes just a walk in your neighborhood, just somewhere where you can get out and breathe, somewhere you can see and touch some green.
I did not realize that Belvidere Park had like this beautiful dam with this really nice area, like a little sandy beach you can walk to and you can put your feet in the water. And it's really beautiful. And I've lived here for a long time and I just discovered that this year.
It's amazing when we get out how we see things, huh?
So I'm just trying to take my kids fishing.
Yeah, just trying to take them fishing. Well, and then the one last thing I was just going to say too, to fight that isolation, and this one's hard for me to say because I am most definitely an introvert and I can only people for so long before I have to go back to my hole. Amen. Ashley's my sister, man. She understands that. But making it a point to connect with other people, even if sometimes if it means moving outside of your comfort zone. And, this guy's really good at that, but so is our church family because you get around these people, they're not going to let you sit in a corner for very long without pulling you in. And that's what we need. We need community. We need family because that helps us carry each other's burdens, but it also helps us to make sure that we are staying on the upside of everything. All right, Pastor.
All right, let's give her a hand.
All right.
I said 30 and you did exactly.
Was it exactly
It
30?
was almost exactly
That's the teacher.
exactly 7 o'clock. So first question, and by the way, you have the handout. The handout is meant for you to take home because a lot of that there are writing exercises, especially if you're going through, struggling with depression and things like that. Each week we're talking about something that feeds into depression, and anything that can alter your mood can lead you into a place of depression, right? So the first question, if technology is not the enemy, how much technology is the right amount? How do you know when you've had too much? I don't think there's ever a not enough. I've never been like, man, I haven't had enough Facebook this week, right? Have you ever been like,
I feel like you set a little bit of time, like maybe in the mid-morning and then like early afternoon, and then that's like your window to be able to do that, and then you go and do something that's active.
that
So it's
requires a
in
level of
moderation.
discipline.
I am very disciplined,
Yeah.
so I don't, sorry. I'm huge with time, I'm sorry.
No, discipline-wise, I might struggle there, but if you can do that, yeah, if you set a window for that, and that's your
But late at night when everything quiets down, I'll binge watch, so.
right. And I'll say too with Teresa, because I do a lot for the church, right, when it comes to interacting with Facebook and our different medias and things like that, that you end up spending. And the funny thing is when I started working at this church, and I was kind of negotiating with my boss on what I can and can't do at work, right? Just talking to the Lord about, okay, well, I can't do this. If I'm at the church office, I can't do this because that's goofing off and that's wasting time. And the only thing I allowed myself was, well, I'll be able to check Facebook because that has to do with church. And I don't like Facebook 6 days a week. But man, on Saturday when I'm supposed to be studying, it is irresistible, right? Like all of a sudden, what is everybody doing? I missed you all week. Where's everybody been? Like when I'm supposed to be studying and reading my word, all of a sudden it has a pull. Now, when we're talking about internet addiction in particular, it's what you call a process addiction. When you deal with chemical addictions, with drinking, with drugs, things like that, the heart addictions where your brain develops a chemical dependency on it, those are your heart addictions. Process addictions we talked about last week, which are types of addictions that develop in your life through habitual use. And there are ways in which you can say, okay, this process addiction is beginning to look like a real addiction. It's beginning to do the same thing that it is. First thing, loss of control. How do you know if you've lost control of your scroll time?
You can't put it down.
You can't put it down. Did anybody remember a thing called, does anybody know that? what was that? What was the app that did that? And it was like somebody would be like decorating and they'd be live streaming their house, and it made this like little whistle. Periscope. Does anybody remember Periscope?
I never had that do that to me.
Yeah, Periscope had a little, and I remember because Kristen is a decorator person. I'm gonna tell you something about Kristen. Kristen had a Pinterest page with 40,000 followers, and she did not like how much time it took, so she deleted it. And then she got her Instagram up to, I don't know what was her Instagram, like 12,000, something like that, right? Tens of thousands of people on her Instagram. She's like, it's taking up too much time. I don't like it, and she just deleted it. And I have no concept of that. I'm like, wait, people were, and I know because she just, for Kristen, it's just like, well, too much time, and she'll do that. I always wonder if I become, unprofitable to her in marriage, if I'll just find myself sitting in the dumpster like, what happened? Right? She's a very practical woman. I've always joked that in our marriage, I am the romantic, she is the practical. She's like, do we need this or not? I will tell you that when it came, especially with loss of control, right? Whenever you have repeated failed attempts to reduce your usage, you're struggling when you can't reduce your usage. Then it's becoming a processed addiction. Now you're actually having struggles with it. I will tell you, there have been a couple times in this. Funny you mentioned video games, because I was at the leading edge of technology when I started playing video games. It was on an Atari with one button, right? Space Invaders, and that button was usually broke, and you had to just kind of maneuver so the bullet would leave at the right time to hit the thing. Anybody old enough to remember that? But then I was there when video stores were a thing, and my brother and I would go rent a video game, a cartridge from the video store, and then our thing was, well, we got to turn it in tomorrow, we're going to get a late fee, so we would stay up all night playing that thing, just, no sleep, right, gotta play this game, right, that was me and my brother. But then what happened was games became online, and I learned very quickly that I couldn't handle that, because we'd had Hunter when he was first born 20-something years ago. First online game came out, and I started playing it, and I realized that I was basing my life around that game. And I was not spending time with my kids. And first thing I did, I said, okay, you know what? No video games until 7 or 8 o'clock at night, right? That way I know when I come home from work, that first 2 or 3 hours, that's going to be with the family. And then I realized that for me, when it comes to any kind of video game, it has to be something that I can pause and walk away. I can't do anything where I can't get up and walk away from that game, because I realize when I do that I am now robbing my family of my presence, right? So that's been kind of my thing. That, and I can't play any of the NBA games because I get so angry. I guess my personality changes, right? Like because they cheat, okay? They cheat, and when they cheat, it makes me so mad. But I had to set those things because I realized what they were doing, not just to me, but to my relationships with other people, right? The second one is preoccupation or craving, meaning you're struggling with it whenever you're not doing it, you're thinking about doing it. And when you're separating it, it's still coming back in your mind. And I was talking to Ashley when we were going over some of this. It almost acts like that when you're first in love stage, right? I mean, I was obsessed with Kristen for months and months. I mean, well, a month till we got married. But even after that, you just came to that, listen, she Yoko Ono'd my band. I was in a band, and I dropped out of the band and everything, because it was like my life was, where is Kristen? I wonder what Kristen's doing. I wonder what she's thinking right now, Like you know what I'm saying? You get in that place, right? And the thing is these types of passions and addiction try to hijack your love. That's what they're doing. They're hijacking your love. They're hijacking your passion. And the problem with a lot of these things online is they will give you the illusion of progress, right? Every Candy Crush, Bejeweled, whatever little phone game you have, it's there to go up a level. You've got a high score. It's just like at the casino where they're just trying to sit there and tap that dopamine thing on your brain, right? Mood dependence. What do we think mood dependence is? We're talking about online addiction. What do you think mood dependence means?
I mean, if you're playing a game, if you're winning or losing.
If you're winning or losing?
Yeah.
We're talking about healthy coping mechanisms versus unhealthy coping mechanism, right? If your coping mechanism is worse than the problem you're facing, right? Because, right. As a pastor, you think there are ever days where I'm just tired of thinking about everything that went on at church that day? Right? You ever think I just get to that place where I just, I'm a little addicted to raccoons, honestly, because I feel like they understand me. I'm like, hey guys, I feed you, you love me. That's as complicated as our relationship is, right? Yeah, none of them have ever been like, I'm going to go see another porch. Like, I'm not kidding.
Make
I'm,
an angry, they will tear your house apart.
Yeah, they're like,
Just don't tell people you talk to.
yeah. They've never been like, I'm not getting fed at this porch. I don't feel like you're feeding me at this porch.
Just saying.
So mood dependence means you're using it as a coping tool. You're trying to escape stress, avoid loneliness, numb boredom. Anybody ever struggle with those things? And of course, the big one is to regulate your anxiety, right? Now, let's say if this is a bad coping mechanism, let's take these things. So we're talking about escaping stress. We're using it as a coping tool. I'm going to say if you use it in small amounts to escape stress, you got on there for 15, 20 minutes or something like that just to clear your brain and then you go back. Here's my problem with that particular coping mechanism. If you are stressed about something, you pick up your thing and you scroll, and you da-da-da-da, and you whatever. When you get off, are you any more ready to face that stress? No, in fact, you're less ready, right? One of the...
If you're watching Christian reels, there's some really
It
great
could be about
ones out there.
Jesus. Actually, you know what? That's actually...
They have like little prophet things that
I have rules about Saturday. If I'm on any media Saturday, I have rules about what I'm allowed to watch on Saturday. Because like I won't watch the University of Louisville Cardinals play as much as I like watching them play because they're gonna do something stupid on a Saturday and I'm gonna lose my salvation. I gotta preach tomorrow, right? And I can't cope with it. I don't want to emotionally invest, right?
The same thing with books. I'm very careful about what I read when I'm like that.
Yeah.
I have to read something.
Right. Yeah. So limiting there, right? Because again, it's what you're setting your mind on. I'm gonna get into some verses here in a second. Yeah, because we've got plenty of time. Avoiding loneliness. Does the internet make you more or less lonely?
More lonely.
Right? The sad thing is a lot of people get on the internet to try to reconnect or to connect to some sort of thing, right? I can't tell you this is just because you know me, I'm an open book, right? I've literally been scrolling on Facebook and I'm like, your sermon's not on Facebook. You're not going to find anything inspiring you, pointing you towards the Lord. Now, every now and then, one of y'all have a really good something posted that really does, get me in a good spot. And I'll be honest, I have a friend who sent me a friend request, and I don't know if he's watching or not. He's back in Kentucky. He was a friend, but he was, maybe not of the same religious persuasion. Somebody I was speaking into his life. We had a few things in common. But his Facebook was overwhelmingly negative political posts. And I like you as a person, but I don't want to have to open my Facebook and worry about, you giving me 900 reasons why these are horrible, evil baby eating, whatever. And they might be. And listen, I'm not defending any politician. But I do tell you this. I have never been like, I wonder what you guys think about politics. Let me go ask your Facebook. I'll ask you, right? I will come up and be like, so what do you think about this? And we'll have an actual conversation. Like what you said about racism. Racism is huge online. And when I go play pickleball, and there have been times where there have been like 3 white guys and several Indians and several black guys and several Asians and just everybody, and nobody cares, right? Because we're here. It's only online that things get weird like that, right? So, problem is avoiding loneliness is tough. Man, we could do a whole thing on loneliness and how it leads to depression, right? Because you can be married to somebody and be lonely, right? You can be living with a house full of people and be lonely. One of my things, I was, you guys know I was emo back in the day, back when I was singing in a band and stuff. I was reading and writing poetry. If Chris had showed you my letters in the Navy, they were. And you know what I like to do, because I like that feeling. No. I never dressed. But I'm just saying, I was sensitive back when it wasn't okay to be sensitive, right? Like I grew up, you weren't allowed to be sensitive. You had to tough it out, right? But I would literally go out and I would just sit there and I'd write the song lyrics for our group that night, and I would write them on the sidewalk of Virginia Beach and on Atlantic and Pacific Boulevard while people were walking beside, because I loved the idea that no matter how many people were around me, I was still alone. Right? That no matter how many people you put in that room, and there were times in that room where you couldn't walk from one side to the other for the crowd of people, and you could be around that many people, still be completely alone.
Is it like, are they wearing black and they do poetry?
I wasn't goth, no.
Fingers, go to a cafe and stuff.
Emo, like back in the, it's just it's a thing.
That's what it sounds like.
I feel like we're the same age.
You need more eyeliner!
Get on your phone and look.
Yeah, we'll look that up later. All right. I did not mean to confuse it.
You need to get more eyeliner.
Yeah. Just so you guys know, I also played basketball on the team in high school, so I was with the jocks. I wasn't some sitting in the corner kid, is what I'm saying. All right. All right. Let's get back on, okay?
Yeah, you had all those pictures of tears. Continue.
Yeah, I know. The problem is you can come into church and you can leave church and still be lonely, right? And most of the time what I find in church is when people come into church and they leave church lonely, it's because they sit there waiting for someone else to approach them, right? Or they do the 50-yard dash right after church. Or sometimes, I always love it when people come to you with a problem, and I'm like, I've known you've had a problem for weeks because I see how you interact or don't interact at church. When you're sitting there with a scowl on your face during the sermon and you run out as soon as the sermon's done, I know that there's something going on in your life, whether or not you're going to share it. But loneliness comes from the fact that we're not known, right? That if everybody in this room,
Sometimes, Pastor, you go to church for a while, and all of a sudden, the people say, I am a friend. Then all of a sudden, they change your mind somehow. I don't know what happened, but they dump you like this. Then you were sitting around the crowds for a couple hundred people, but still you don't.
yeah, you know, one of the things that's always bothered me in church, and I'll bring this up today because I read something today and it just kind of caught me. I wasn't reading, it was a video that popped up, and it said that if you wanted to talk about payoff for fixing your life, would it be better for you to have more positive thoughts or less negative thoughts? If I were going to tell you, hey, this is going to change your life for the better, would you say changing your life for the better is going to happen more from having more positive thoughts or having less negative thoughts?
More positive. More positive.
I feel like less negative because you wouldn't have anxiety. It wouldn't get you to that below loneliness feeling.
What I'm going to tell you is, yeah, study after study after study shows less negative gives you way more payoff than trying to have more positive thoughts. Because you're fighting the voice that's telling you you're worthless. You're fighting the voice that tells you people don't like you. For whatever reason, and Northern Illinois has an issue with this like no other place I've ever lived, is if two people are over here talking and this person turns and sees them talking, there's something over here where the enemy says, they're talking about you. They don't like you. All the time in church, I'm dealing with, well, I don't feel like so-and-so likes me. And I'm like, have you talked to them? Well, no, but I know they don't like it. And they'll bring up something, right? And a lot of times the other person's not even aware that that's happened, right? And then as a pastor, it's like, you just feel like you're stomping fires out for that all the time. That's why I love positive people, right? I love people who go out and include. I love Jen's happy, hey, I love Sam and her hugs and all the people that, right, that make that effort because the enemy is working against us every Sunday, right? Like he shows up. I'm just going to tell you something. The enemy is not allowed in the church unless you bring him with you. Right? Like I could tell you he's not there waiting for you. Right? Because I know what the church is like when it's empty, and it doesn't feel like the enemy. It feels like the Holy Spirit. But sometimes people bring stuff into church with them, right? And that voice is, and again, when we're talking about getting into depressive states and things like that, because how much more is it going to fuel in your depression if you come out of church thinking, they don't even love me there. And they're supposed to because they're Christians, right? So mood dependence, using it as a coping tool, and when you're irritable, restless without it, right? If you notice that you get, a little cranky when you're deprived of it, yeah. I mean, if you got kids and they're acting up, unplug their video game in the middle of a screen once. Just see how that goes, right? Just see how that flesh may or may not come out right in that moment, right? I remember one time, I had just gotten a wireless network card, and this is back when it was expensive enough that it was a deal, and it was a USB one, and I was testing it, so it was sticking out of the front of my computer, and I had my chair there, and I'd just gotten it set up, so I got up and I walked to the kitchen to grab something, and Tristan, who was a little at the time, came and jumped in my chair, spun around, and kicked that thing, broke it in half, right? And I came back in, and I looked at it, and I looked at him, and I looked at it, and I was like, I need you to leave the room, buddy. And when he left the room, I shut the door, and I'm like, and I just like, yeah, and then I did it because I don't, and he didn't mean to, it just, but the way that could control my emotion, right, that shows that there's some issue going on there. 4, neglect of responsibility when real life takes a hit. I know my wife has been banging on me because last week I said this, and I do hold to this, that I won't ever let an online something take me away from a real something, right? Like if there's somebody who really wants to go out to eat or really wants to hang out or really wants to have a conversation, I won't put aside real life for online because online isn't real, right? And so every time this week, if she's asked me something and I'm looking at a screen, she's like, I thought you said. And I was like, all right. It's a problem with that's the problem with talking up here, Teresa. If Matt watches it, he's going to repeat all this back to you, and you're going to say, I know what I said, Matt. Like I know what I said. I said it.
No, he ain't.
And everything is an addiction when you continue on despite negative consequences of the behavior. Anytime it's causing negative things in your life and you continue to do it, that is a sign that you have some sort of addiction, right? And that's why we talk about process addictions. It can be overeating. I don't remember all the ones, but I mean, like gambling is a process addiction. All the different types of addictive behaviors that come into your life that you continue doing the behavior, even though you're not coping with the thing, but it's bringing negative things into your life and causing more trouble, then it's a sign that you're struggling with addiction. So, Isaac, you'd probably be the... I don't know. We did process addictions in youth group this week because that's just, they're like, what are we talking about this week? It's like, we're going to do process addictions. Because I talked to the kids about it too, and I love their insight in this. 2 verses that we're always going to use when we're talking about addictive behavior. First one is Hebrews 12:1. Somebody give me Hebrews 12:1. Martha, can you grab me a water? You know, I feel like because your name is Martha, if I need help, that's the name you would ask.
Don't be like Mary.
Yeah. You know who's going to help? Martha.
Yeah.
Right.
You go for
Hebrews 12:1.
Hebrews 12:1.
Yeah, somebody can read out.
Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us.
So the picture there is, and this is coming right after the faith chapter. So Hebrews 11 is by faith Abraham, and by faith Isaac, and by faith, by faith, all of these people ran their race. And then it gets to 12:1, and it says, since we have all of these people in the stands watching us, and I theologically put my grandfather in those stands, right? My grandfather died in the Lord speaking in tongues, right? There's an anointing on my family that has come through him, right? The way he lived his life, not perfectly, but striving towards godliness, right? So you have all of these people in the faith who have gone on before us. Since they are there and they're watching us, what is the first thing we do?
Throw off everything that hinders.
Throw off everything that hinders. King James says, lay aside every weight. There are some things on your journey that are just weight, right? And you have to just take inventory. This refrigerator over here is a great collector of garbage, right? Like, I remember one time Debbie put her leftovers in there. I was like, Debbie, you're never going to eat those leftovers. She's like, I know, I'll throw them away tomorrow. And I'm like, yeah, right? Like literally that refrigerator is just storing them. So, because it was something you wouldn't reheat anyway, right? Like if I don't eat all of my omelet and they're like, do you want a box? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to eat the rest of this omelet at home, but I feel bad leaving it on my plate, right? You find that you're carrying weights in your life, first thing, because you are running a race. Lay aside every weight that hinders us and the sin that so easily entangles us. Not every sin, right? Not every weight is a sin. Sometimes it's just a weight. There's sort of a spectrum there when it comes to when does it become a sin? When is it just because can you have a bad habit that's not a sin?
Yep.
Like chewing your nails, is that a sin?
No.
Right? Is it a good habit? No. Right? So you can have bad habits that aren't sin. You can have good habits that aren't godly habits, right? You could be doing things because they're good to do, but they're not godly things because they're not things you're doing for the Lord. They're not doing things to bring you closer to God. So not everything falls into that. But I will say this, that you can have things that are definitely weights, right? And things that assist you. Like when Paul says bodily exercise profits but little, right? It doesn't do a whole lot of good to exercise your body, but he does say your body is a temple. And so this morning, because I knew there were guys playing pickleball at 6:30 in the morning, I got up at 6:30. I did not want to play. They were not great games, but you know what? I got up and I got in 5,000 or 6,000 steps before I started my day because I understand that this is a stressful job and I got to keep this body in a place. And it's not about, whether I'm saved or not. It's really, to me, it's about how long I'm going to be able to preach. You know, the better care I take of this body, the longer I get to serve the Lord in his church, right? Because God bless it, I've seen a whole lot of fat preachers fail because they were fat, right? Swallowed your air there. No, listen. I saw a great joke where a guy had some really big, baggy, non-fitting pants falling down over his loafers. It says, if your pastor wears these pants, you're going to hear about Israel's place in the end times. I was like, that's true, right? That's an old Pentecostal joke there, right? All right. 1 Corinthians 6:12, 1 Peter 1, 3 through 11. If you ever struggle with things like addictions in your life, 1 Peter 1, 3 through 11, I've gone through it so many times, you should just memorize that. I would say it's like Proverbs 7. If you struggle with sexual addiction, you have to just memorize Proverbs 7. There's just particular chapters in the Bible that speak to particular things. 3 through 11. 1 Peter 1, 3 through 11. And it starts with, God has given you everything. Right? And when he says everything, God has given you every tool to overcome the sin that will beset you in your life. And he goes line by line on how to get to that place where you have laid those things aside, right? It's a long passage and a long verse. I've done it a bunch of times, so we won't do it tonight. But you should definitely, anytime you're struggling with, is this a good or a bad thing, follow down that list. And if that thing doesn't make it all the way to the end, then you know at some point you're going to cut it. I can tell you that there have been times where I've had bad habits in my life that I knew God was calling me out of, and I just wasn't ready to give it up yet, right? Like, I think food has been a big one where you can't keep doing that. You know what my wife does for me, and I love my wife so much, but she knows when I'm stressed. She knows when I'm, had a rough day yesterday and whatever, and I was like, I'm gonna grab some Chick-fil-A. She goes, let me get you that float, because you can get at Chick-fil-A, you get an ice cream float in Coke Zero. The ice cream's not diet, right? And the thing is right, but it's so we could call it a diet float because the Coke in there is not full calorie, but the ice cream is. But I would, I had little things in my life where I'm like, I'm going to cheat on this and allow this one. Problem is, my wife loves me so much that she's like, she always thinks I'm having a rough day, right? She knows I'm like, here, have another one. It's okay. And I finally said, I can't. I have to. The thing I always go back to is this word in the old Hebrew called karam, right? Whenever they go into the city of Jericho and they march around it 7 times and the walls fall, God says you don't take anything out of that city. Everything in that city is karam. It's actually where Muslims get haram from. It means it's forbidden. Right? It means you're not allowed to touch it. It means it's devoted to God utterly as through its destruction. And I have found there are things in my life that are so addictive to me or so enticing to me or so mood altering to me that I just have to, the Bible will call it the ban. I have to put the ban on them. I'm not allowed to touch this. I'm not allowed to have this. I can't bring this in my life. It is devoted to the Lord utterly as through destruction. Right? I will destroy every trace of it in my life, and I will not allow myself to touch it, because when you touch it, then what's the very next chapter after Jericho is the sin of Achan, right? Where when God says, don't touch anything, one guy says, I'm going to touch it. And what happens? The very next battle they get into, they get beaten by an enemy they shouldn't have got beaten by because they've allowed that little bit of sin to stay in their life that they shouldn't have kept in there. They kept the door to the enemy open, and because the door to the enemy was open, when they got in the next battle, they didn't have the power of God on their side like they needed, and they lost the battle. And by the way, when I was in Israel, I stood in the valley of Achor. It was beautiful. I haven't thrown in a when I was in Israel story in a while, right? All right. 1 Corinthians 6:12, who wants to read that? Somebody go to 1 Corinthians 6:12. How much time we got? 2 minutes.
Everything is permissible for me, but not everything is beneficial. Everything is permissible for me, but I will not be mastered by anything.
I look in the mirror and tell myself that. Like, I'm not even going to be mastered by you, buddy. Right? Like, even you. Because I know that guy. Right? Everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. There are things in your life that aren't a big sin, but that doesn't mean they're beneficial to your walk with Christ. And the main thing is, I will not be mastered by anything. I won't be mastered by my depression. I won't be mastered by my anger. I won't be mastered by my fear. I won't be mastered by my anxiety. Am I going to feel those things? Absolutely.
Don't let them drive your car.
Don't let them drive. Feelings make a great passenger, but don't let them drive the car, right? The funny thing is so I've talked about this before. I don't struggle with depression like my wife does, right? I know people who their struggle with depression is a completely different thing, right? I will also tell you that Kristen hasn't really raised her voice at me a handful of times in 30 years. Like, to get Kristen angry takes, you're a jerk, okay? There's two people I know she's been really angry with in 30 years, because that's just not her thing. She doesn't struggle with anger. Guess which one I struggle with, right? I'm a man of passion, right? Things get to me, injustice, right? And I would struggle with that. And so I understand that when I'm talking about depression, I'm talking about the thing that I don't struggle with as much as other people, so that I understand that. But I will say this, that even with my own anger, where I struggle with it the most, I have to come to a place where I say, I can't let it master me. Right? And if the Bible says that he has given me the tools and the way out of this, and sometimes that tool is counseling, sometimes that tool is other people, sometimes that tool is just, I'll be honest with depression, I always feel like movement and depression are at opposite ends. The more you can move, whatever that depression spirit is, it's slow. You can outrun it. You can outwalk it, right? And a lot of times that the picture I always see, since I have come to this town, that picture I see is the person sitting on the couch, and there's just a big black figure behind them with their hands on that person's shoulder saying, just sit down, don't get up, it's not worth it, don't move, and it's just pushing them and holding them in place. And if that spirit has just been in this area, if you live here, you're going to fight that, right? But don't be mastered by it. Right? My accountability partner is the first thing I always tell with the accountability partner is I go to that verse. You have not yet struggled unto death. Right? It hasn't killed you. You haven't had to die for this thing. You're still struggling, and if you're still struggling, there's life in you. You still got a chance. Today's another day. Tomorrow's another day, right? You're going to be able to fight this battle again. You have not yet resisted unto death. You still got a chance. Amen?
Amen.
All right, questions, comments? I have not checked our online. Someone said sound is off. Fran says, nope, she came back to thank you, so it must have come back. It probably was lag. Paul says addiction. Somebody say addiction. Rosemary Judy was on there. Hi to everybody.
Part in Hebrews is 12:10.
What's that?
Our fathers disciplined us for a little while as they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good, so that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. Make level paths for your feet, so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed.
No discipline seems, right? Sometimes God has unplugged the computer on me, right? Sometimes God has shut off my phone on me, right? I joke because right before I went to Springfield, Missouri, my phone broke and I had to have a drug dealer phone to stay in contact. I call it that because it was a Cricket prepay, right?
No,
So
it legit looked like, because it popped up in my Snapchat, a suggested friend by that phone number.
yeah, I know. Like all of a sudden they're like, "Who's this guy?" And I'm texting people and like, "Who is this?" And I'm like, I can see some of my texts, but I can't respond to them, right? Amen. All right. You know, Jeannie, I almost asked you to close us out in prayer. I don't think I ever have I? You can give me a no if you don't want to. But do you want to close us out in prayer? All right, Teresa, would you close us out? You started us, close us out.
Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you once again for the opportunity to come into your house, Lord. Just sit at your feet, hear the word, be encouraged. Lord, I just pray for every person that's in this room. For whatever we're going through, Lord, the ups and the downs, may our eyes always be firmly locked on you, knowing that you are the source of our strength and of our peace. Lord, I pray conform me to your truth, as we know the promises of your word. I pray these things in the name of Jesus.